This is another exciting edition of the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I am your host, Rob, and today I have one of my favorite people that I met on LinkedIn just a few short years ago, and Krista Mullion. She is a tech marketing expert. Having spent considerable time in Silicon Valley, she has over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur, and more recently forayed into the world of professional coaching. Now, coaching has a lot of buzz around it because there's a lot of misleading aspects to it, but this one is not misleading because she has extensive online marketing skills and tech skills that really lend themselves into a true world of coaching for business to business. Krista, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. How are you?
Thanks, Rob. So happy to be here. I'm a big fan of the Drunken Grape, so great to be here.
Hey, awesome. Now, we talked in the green room at length today. I think it was probably the longest chat I had with anyone ever in the green room. But it's always great catching up with you. I always find our conversations are long and lengthy. It won't be that way today for this live broadcast. You know, we're going to be here for a good 15 to 20 minutes maximum or so. But we talked a lot today about authenticity and intent and how that applies today into the world of business, because social media is driven by a lot of fraudsters, posers, pretenders. I'm going to be frank here. A lot of people totally misrepresent themselves. You've got followers with, 300,000, 3 million followers that live in mom's basement or they live off their partner or welfare. They're literally not even close to what they represent. And, content creators creating content out of what and for who, because there's no purpose or intent there. Talk to us a bit about your background, because you have a real background. You have a ton to offer people. I know that you have an awful lot of skills when it comes to various levels of marketing, traditional marketing, email marketing, developing your website, using social media. I know you coach and teach sessions on this. And really what you do a brilliant job of, and I've observed your work and I love it, you pull everything in together like a fine net. Talk to us a bit about it and just your approach and how intent and authenticity really matter to you.
So for me, first and foremost, it's about choosing how you want to represent yourself to the world. And you have to have a value message to offer. If you don't, then why are you even doing this? Everything has to speak the same message. A lot of people have disconnect between their online persona and their offline persona. And that's really a shame, because if you want to be authentic, you need to represent yourself on all platforms in the similar way. And it should always be value first, not look at me. Because ultimately the posers, the attention grabbers, they're just like fads. They come and go. Whereas if you have a real value to offer and real expertise in your area, you're going to be one of those timeless brands like what I'm drinking today. Because we are on the Drunken Grape. Yes, Jameson. So let me just raise my glass to you, dear Rob, because you're one of the people who I really respect.
The happy hour, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is, right away on the start of the show. Jameson I love because it's clean, it's crisp, it's it's a consistent style of whiskey. It's not peaty. You get some soft toffee or caramel notes in there. Probably been aged a standard 3 years in cask. But it's what they call column distilled. So it's not in a copper distilled pot that you would find Scotch in. It's also triple distilled. So it's brought to a level of about 98% alcohol, not around 62%. And then they lower it with distilled water. They bring it down to about 45%. John Jameson founded this in, I believe, 1780. And Jameson now spans over 130 different countries. It's owned by Pernod Ricard. That's a massive outfit. And the advantage of styles of whiskey like this is they're just universally accepted. Scotch, because it can tend to be briny or peaty or, it's got some harsh characteristics to it. I had a glass of 16 years age of Lagavulin the other day, and It was a combination of like almost had like gasoline notes in it with the peatiness and the smokiness. Now, I had to be in the mood to have that with Jameson. You could just have that in any mood. And there's a big advantage to that style of it. One of Ireland's great whiskey distilleries. So in my hand, we're going to jump into this is J. War. This is a very common and famous Californian winery out of Paso Robles. Paso Robles is a powerhouse wine producing region. You have you have vineyards and olive groves. It's a very Mediterranean-like climate. This grape came over from Bordeaux. Cabernet Sauvignon is really has a brief history on this planet. It's been documented back to around the 18th century. It's actually a crossing between Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc, which are two great Bordeaux varietals. And it has emerged as a global powerhouse. And since the year 2015 has now got something like 830,000 acres under vine. So just think about this. It covers an area of 3,400 square kilometers roughly of vine on this planet, just one grape. And like Jameson, it's found in virtually every wine producing country in the world. You can find this style of wine pretty much anywhere in the world. And it's always associated with blackberry, cherry notes. On the underripe side, you can have bell pepper. On the riper side, you get jamminess, dark fruit, sometimes hints of dark chocolate or milk chocolate or cola in it. Has a good affinity for oak. So cheers to you, my friend. This is awesome. And I love having you here. So, let's have a sip to that.
Yes. And I want to tell you, I really like Paso Robles wines. They're very full-bodied. And, if you ever get a chance to go there, me being a Californian, I've gone many, many times. It's one of our kind of getaways a couple of times a year. And you'll go there and it's very beautiful, beautiful landscape, but also very hot and dry. One of my favorite wineries, if you get a chance to come, is the Justin Winery.
Oh yeah,
which is there, and it's a really beautiful family-owned winery, and a lot of them are, which is another reason to come because you really get to see a very unique culture. And not to mention California food combined with California wine, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, because California really embraces a lot of the best of culinary from around the planet. It also has such a tremendous amount of biodiversity. Of all the soil types that vines grow in, half of them are found in California, or half the different types of soil types, if you can believe that. You have even have volcanic soils, I believe, to the north. And then, of course, you have limestone, you have calcareous clay, you have alluvial soils, you have all types, granite, rocky soils. I mean, it's almost endless. And the climate, I think California, I've been there a few times. What an ideal place to live in the world as far as climate goes. You got these nice mild winters. A lot of cases, you never have to see a winter jacket. Maybe on the rare day you do, but it's rare. It's almost always invariably sunny. It's just nice and dry climate. It's just such a cool place to live. It's got so much going on. And the culinary is really adapted so well. I mean, you have I'd imagine there's a large element of a Mediterranean diet there too, because it really does compare with a Mediterranean country. That's why it's such a wine producing powerhouse. I mean, California on its own would be the fourth largest producing country in the world if it was a country. It's about 80% of the U.S. wine production.
Two more that I really recommend taking a look at are Peachy Canyon and Robert Hall. Those are great wineries. And when you go to these wineries, when you come here, you have to just plan on coming on an empty stomach because obviously there's amazing California cheeses. So, and obviously we think of wine and cheese, we think of places like Italy and France and Europe, but California really does a great job of rivaling that with their homemade bread, their cheeses, their grapes, and their olives, and all of those things are actually grown in California. So you're getting really local, fresh produce with your wine experience. So there's a lot of 4-course, 5-course dinners, a lot of great places to dine. But what you said is it's really close to the ocean. So you've got everything kind of. You've got these hills.
Yeah.
And so when you're in Paso Robles, you might think you'd be in Tuscany. Like there's a part where it's really rural and very, very hilly.
And very green,
you've got
right?
olive trees, very green, but very hot. So you're thinking, okay, olive trees, rolling hills, heat. You'd think you're in Tuscany. And then you drive an hour away and you're on the coast. And then, all these coastal cities have such a different vibe. So you can get a little bit of everything in California. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's awesome. And I know you can get that in France where you're located now too. It's culinary in France.
Hey, I picked the best locations, right? I got the best of both worlds.
For wine and food combined, oh man, you just got to drop ship yourself into Italy next, and maybe in around Basque country and around Rioja, Spain, and you've tied in the knot. And we can throw Portugal in there with the Douro River Valley. That's really rich in history too. I think it's one of the oldest demarcated regions in 1756 as a classified wine producing region. You mentioned Tuscany. Of course, you got Chianti, which goes, I think dates to around 1717. Actually, it's a little later than that, but it's with the edict under Cosimo, the Medici, Cosimo III. So lots of rich history there. And that is cool. So let's get back to you. Of course, the intent, we talk intent, we talk authenticity. So your approach is a no candid, no nonsense approach. I love it because I love people who are not, they are no nonsense and they're candid. They just throw the punches as they see them, because that's what a great mentor, business coach, or consultant would do. So talk a little bit about your approach. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, make sure to share this content. Make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe to the Drunken Grape YouTube channel and tap into the virtual happy hour experience, because we got great guests like Krista on weekly. Krista, just talk about how you tap all this expertise in to really grow your clients with the magic of intent and authenticity, because I think you've got a lot to say here.
So for me, it's all comes down to strategy. I don't believe in fluff. I don't believe in buzzwords or following fads. So if someone comes and says, all you need is a funnel and that's the secret to growth, it just makes me roll my eyes and laugh, because there's so much more that goes into business, to growing a healthy, sustainable business, right? Because we're not looking to make some quick money and run. If you're doing that, you should be thinking about crypto or another kind of theme, right? But if you're trying to grow a business, we want sustainability. And so for me, it's all about a big picture strategy. And I think that's what's missing for most people that I coach. They've kind of honed in on one aspect, but they're sorely lacking an overarching strategy. And when I work with my clients, I go through a very, very detailed process of what I call the intake. And we go over all the areas of their business. So I look really closely at what they're doing in their sales. What are they doing in their marketing? What are they doing in their operations? What are systems they have in place? And I help them set up their priorities. I help find where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, and I do a very detailed assessment. And I don't think a lot of business coaches are doing that. And then I put together my recommendations, which could be anywhere from 1 page to, 25 pages long.
Wow. That's comprehensive and that's legitimate. I think about corporate events, and when I host virtual corporate tastings, I tried the consumer side recently, as you know, and maybe I need to retweak it, and I missed a couple elements there. And one of them is that guide. Normally on a corporate side, what I do is I set out an engagement guide. And the guide is, in my case, 1 pager. It just breaks down what's going to happen, the intro, the various parts of the presentation, what's expected of the client itself. And obviously, you're taking this because you have to. I mean, if you were to step into my business and coach and mentor me, I would expect you to probably write up a few pages just saying, listen, Rob, I've looked at your email branding and marketing. it's okay, but it's lacking. Or, I've looked at your website, it's strong, but you need to tweak this. Or you're doing well on social media, but consider this angle as well. And then have a justified reasons as to why, bullet points as to why I would want that stuff. And I know that this is exactly the type of brain think tank you have, because us that are serious entrepreneurs think this way. And it's like, you can give me the why, right? Why I should do something. But if you don't break down the how, I'm not going to take you very seriously. It's like basically, yes, you need the why and the how. You say, Rob, this is why you should do this. Okay, why should I get an SEO specialist to enhance my website, for instance? And this is how you go about it. You want to find someone with this skill sets. You want to find somebody that's particular within a regional experience, because you want to get your regional message out first. You don't have the revenue stream to go national. I've learned a lot about this with my SEO guide, but I'm using this as an example. If you're $1 million business, it's okay to spend $10,000 to $100,000 a year on Google AdWords and have that international approach that it's going to take, or national approach it's going to take to conquer the States and Canada in the case of my business with virtual tasting parties. But it has to be scalable, tenable, and you have to break out an actual action plan. It's like, well, okay, if you're at this stage, it's going to cost you not so much money, but this is why you want to utilize these techniques. And this is why you want to break down this type of expertise at each level of the way. And that is an actionable plan. That is a plan with intent. Like, your intent is clear. I want to help you. I want to help you thrive. Yes, I want to prosper, but I'm not going to prosper and boom with you unless you prosper and boom too. And there has to be a process there. And I really like how you tie that in. Yeah.
You have to, for me, my success is only tied into your success. So if you're not making more money by hiring me, then what's the ROI? So if you can hire me, but I'm not a therapist, so I'm not getting my kicks off you paying me by the hour just to talk to me or to spend time with me. I'm in it for the results, and it's a partnership. So what you just said about SEO, I thought that was a great topic, because I think that just like anything in life, if you go and you say, I'm hungry, and you go into an Italian restaurant, they say, here's the solution, it's pizza. Then you go across the street and you go into a Chinese restaurant, they say, here's the solution, it's noodles, right? So depending on who you're talking to, they're going to show you what they know. So if they know SEO, or they know email, or they know LinkedIn, they're going to keep pushing their product. Whereas me, I am above all of that. So I'm an overarching business coach, which means I'm not partial to pushing anything towards you. On the contrary, I'm going to ask you, why are we spending our time over there? Because I consider most of my clients, their time and resources are very, very limited, and therefore very precious. So they can't afford to spend all day long on LinkedIn. They have other things they need to be doing. And most of the people who come to me, Rob, have been sold on one tool as a miracle tool. Like, if you just stay on LinkedIn 24/7, the clients are going to roll in. And sooner or later, you know what happens, right? They realize that that's not true. And then they come to me and they're like, I've been spending day and night on LinkedIn. I've spent so much time on LinkedIn. I post twice a day for 7 days a week. And I don't understand why the clients aren't there. What's going on your website? No traffic. I checked your analytics. No traffic. Your email? Oh, you don't even have an email list? Then I look at your products and I'm like, you don't even have products. Like, what are the people what can they buy from you? What are you selling? If I wanted to buy something from you right now, is there something I can click on that will take me to a checkout page where I can pay for something? And what if I ask you right now for a sales inquiry? So I'm like, I'm thinking about hiring these services, like wine services. Do you have a sales brochure that you can send me immediately? Do you have a process? Do you have a follow-up process? So do you just like say, oh, let's hop on a call? No. Like, do you have an inquiry form with questions to pre-qualify if this is even, they have the budget to hire you? Like, or is your time not valuable and you're going to deal with a bunch of time wasters left and right, or you don't even have a process. So if someone writes to you after hours, you miss the email and you don't even notice that there was an inquiry that came in until 3 days later. You see where I'm headed here?
Yep.
So I work with my clients and I basically uncover and present to them the painful truth of where they're failing. And then I say, look, you're doing this really well, but you're missing this. And this is so essential to your growth and having multiple products, having multiple revenue streams, having passive income, active income, figuring out who your ideal client is, who we call bread and butter clients, the ones who pay the big bills, who we can count on a monthly basis, right? So there's so many things that go into it. Whereas people don't see it that way. They just focus on the one thing that's comfortable, like SEO or LinkedIn or even YouTube. They might be like, oh, all I do is post on YouTube, but they're not making any money. So you see, you can't overarch one thing without looking at a little bit of everything. You should be looking at more of everything, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love how you broke that down, because the whole thought in my head the whole time you were talking, as listening and absorbing all this, was the 30,000 foot view. But the ability for you to get down on the 5 foot view, the 500 foot view, 5,000 foot view. And what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that Krista's able to take something, and it's like, imagine when you're flying somewhere on a destination, right? You're about to arrive in Barbados and you look out that window and you see the beach, you see the ocean, but you see the expanse of the whole area around you. And it gives you a whole idea of what it's like to be in Barbados, because you see it from 30,000 feet flying in. And then as you land, the view gets closer and closer. More and more subtle details come, but the big picture gets funneled into a much more narrow view. Well, that is the essence of this style. And this is probably the best and most powerful way to approach things, because if you hire someone like Krista, and I highly recommend you do, I think we all need a business coach at times. We all need a bit of tweaking. And we need that high level view that can get into specifics and nitty gritty, because Krista really understands, ladies and gentlemen, Krista really understands the high level view and the low level view right down into particular details. She's able to dissect things. And it's something I've noticed about you, Krista, over the years, is that you have a superpower at this. Like, you are really gifted at this. And even on your emails, your newsletters, things just hit specific topics. Sometimes they hit broad topics. And I think it's great, because you mentioned SEO and you mentioned YouTube, you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned Facebook, or whatever they may be using, or maybe just direct marketing blasts. Most people paralyze themselves and just focus on one or two things, instead of creating a web where at least 5 or 6 things are working together in some type of symbiotic relationship. And it's clear as day that you really grasp this incredibly well. And I don't know, it's a gift. Obviously you've got the schooling behind you. You have the real world experience, working at a 6-digit income level in technology, building businesses in the past to 7 and 8 digits on your own. And then, of course, your life experiences tying into things, your own personal hardships and coming back from adversity. And this is something I want to draw on too, because you have had your own challenges that you have really triumphed over.
I'm a doer. I'm not a talker, Rob. So when I worked in tech in Silicon Valley, and I realized early on that I have some entrepreneurial tendencies. And so when my second child was born, I decided to quit and not to go back after my maternity leave. And that was the best decision I made, because I had been hustling and cold calling people. I had put together sales materials, and I had been trying to sell a product for my agency. And I realized that I was going to succeed no matter what, because I was willing to do things outside my comfort zone. I was willing to ring up very powerful people. And I had absolutely no nervousness about calling these people. And I'm like, I'm just going to talk to them like I'm talking to you. Why are they more special than me, right? So I respect their position, but at the same time, I realized early on, if you can get past your fear, you can accomplish anything. And number two, if you're willing to do whatever it takes, like you're not going to give up. You're not going to let something set you back, because there's no failure in life. There's only learning from it. So every time someone would say no to me early on, I would just be like, well, what could I have done better? And I would analyze the situation, and I would say, okay, let me experiment until I find my perfect pitch. Let me keep working on my pitch, and let me ask people, you didn't hire me. You said no. Why? And I actually asked people directly. I said, so you ended up not hiring me. So why? Because I'm trying to be the best at what I do. And so I actually asked people to coach me left and right. So getting past your ego, swallowing your ego, and being humble and being willing to listen, because most people are caught up with their fear, with their ego, and with short-term tunnel vision. Because what you said about having a 3,000-foot view, you know as well as me that we're living in our little bubble. Like, you've got your daily routine. You've got what you're worried about today, Rob, is what Rob thinks about, right? But guess what? What you're thinking about, you have blind spots on all sides. And a business coach is like a fitness coach. If you go to the gym every day, it's almost like on autopilot. You think, like, I'm pushing my limits, I'm doing this. But guess what? After a while, it becomes repetitive. And if you want to push past that and get to your next fitness level, you need to shake things up. You know what I'm talking about. Muscle, there's muscle memory. After a while, those muscles aren't going to get bigger. You kind of reached a plateau. So you need somebody to come in and shake your tree and be like, hey, we're going to we're going to put you outside your comfort zone. That's what coaching does. That's what you should be doing in all aspects of your life. Routine kills creativity, and it kills your progress after a certain level, right?
It does. And you're 100% right. We're going to come to a close here, but I want to bring up and screen share. Just give me a second to log in here, because I want to show your LinkedIn profile to people. I think it's important that they reach out to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have everything in the show notes or the description of this video, which premieres on YouTube Thursday. It'll probably be either this or the following. It'll be the following Thursday at 6 p.m. typically Eastern Standard Time. But I want to bring up your profile because, you are such an interesting creative soul. And I always like how you're willing to reinvent yourself. You practice what you preach. You open up your mouth and you say, listen, this is what we are going to do. And you do it. And I think this is critical. So we're going to get into the screen share here. It's always fun trying to play around with this on Riverside FM. It's an awesome piece of software. But there we go. So, Explore Rob, Explore Jobs. I don't know how I came up there, but there you are, Chris Demolian, Business and Marketing Strategy, because this is exactly what you are, is you're a strategist. And I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is the longest 15-minute podcast, and we're now at about 28 minutes, probably going a half hour. But this conversation has been great. You know what? You energized me to go twice as long as I expected. And that tells you everything about how this conversation went. It went terrifically and swimmingly well. It's, there she is, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to connect with her. Look at this following. And this is predominantly an organically based following. I know you mentioned that you got roped into a pod in the beginning, but I've watched you really flourish on your own. And I really think it's because of your newsletters, your content. It's original content. It's creative content. It's factual content backed by real hardcore substance. I mean, you've called me up just on the fly and say, Rob, tighten the nut on this and do it now. And I have, and I've seen the results. So, I continue to learn a ton from you. And that is a sign. If you're a big CEO, even of $1 billion company out there, you want to pick up somebody like Krista on your staff for a short while to give you some input, because when somebody's able to disseminate information as rapidly as she is, and they're able to take it at a high level view, the mid-level view, and the street level view, that's a rarity. And it makes it even more rare that she actually has all the skills and the education and know-how and the experience to back this up. Listen, you have been a sensational guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. I love your show, and I'm going to continue watching it because you're providing original, valuable content.
And that's the key, and so are you. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, have a terrific day and happy hour. This is Rob and Krista from The Drunken Great.